Shockwaves rippled through the local media industry when MultiChoice announced its decision not to renew ANN7's contract in August 2018. The public response was varied, with some lamenting the loss of diversity in the local media space, while others praised MultiChoice for its decision to take the controversial broadcaster off their bouquet offering.
I don't mourn its passing. And that's because this is an exceptional situation. Yes, we want greater diversity of voices. No question, we need that. But this was an operation set up as a criminal enterprise, as a corrupt enterprise, a nexus in a corrupt relationship between three parties. So it's a truly extraordinary situation, apart from the fact that the actual journalism, the factionalism, the partisanship, the dishonesty, the really poor journalism that it gave us. All of that together means for me, I think that another station replacing it might give us real and substantive diversity.
In an age where fake news and media manipulation is a real concern, South Africa's largest circulating newspaper, the Sunday Times, was forced to apologise for two stories it ran on the SARS rogue unit and the so-called Cato Manor death squad. It was an embarrassing climb down and forced discussion on editorial practice and the dangers of manipulation.
What went wrong after the new editor Bongani Sikloko took over was the failure of interrogating the motive of sources, which is something as journalists we need to do.
We are in a very precarious period as the media industry. We are all trying to be first with the news, but we have less and less resources. We know that advertising revenue has dwindled, and that has affected the number of senior journalists we are able to actually keep in our newsrooms. But with all of those factors, this is an opportunity for all of us to pause and actually say, can we actually stand the test of time?
That's why journalism matters, because we rely on them nowadays to be able to say this is the story, it's in context, and we can verify that it's reasonably true.
Now, Professor Jennifer Thomas played an instrumental role during CNN's rolling coverage of the 9/11 terror attacks in New York City. She shared her memories of what happened behind the scenes on that fateful day on a visit to South Africa in 2018. Can we talk about you for a moment?
Sure.
Can we go back to 9/11?
Yes.
The work that you did.
Yes.
Just take us back in history. How did you approach that story?
So on September 11th, I was a 9 a.m. show producer at CNN. And we know the first Trade Center was hit just before 9 a.m.
In New York?
In New York. Yeah. I was at the world headquarters in Atlanta, which is where our newscast was produced. We were preparing for the show. It was a very, as we say, slow news day. And one point of historical fact people don't know, our story we were going to do as our kicker was the fact that Michael Jordan was supposed to announce that he was coming back to the NBA.
As you say, important, but a slow news day.
Right, slow news day. So we had this whole thing set up at the end with our anchor Leon Harris, Darren Kagan were the anchors in Atlanta. So that was supposed to be our fun story we were going to end the show with. So we were just, waiting to go on air. It was a beautiful day. And then we heard what sounded like thunder coming down the steps in the back of the newsroom. We had our set in the middle of the newsroom, and it was from the editorial meeting saying something happened. We think a plane hit the World Trade Center. So, of course, as the producer and as journalists, I grab my headsets, get my notepad, and we run into the control room. And we were there for the next several hours. Thankfully, we had the video and the broadcast from our affiliates in New York that kept us going while we were trying to determine what happens. And it's really sort of the magic of television for those who are behind the scenes that know how it come together, because there's chaos, there's confusion, you're fearful because, I started thinking of the friends that I had in New York, but you, of course, have to put all of that to the side. So it was just, what can we report? But then we also had those dramatic and tragic images that were coming in, and we were on the back row re-queuing video, and then you start questioning, what is it, what can we show? There's death and tragedy, but it's happening. you know, that's truly breaking news, where in the past we would never show images of anyone falling off of a building. But everything was happening so much at the same time. And of course, we had correspondents at the State Department, at the White House, at the Pentagon. We were all on phones, on conference calls, trying to determine what to cover next. And then we had 2 new correspondents that day, Paul Lazan and Aaron Brown, who were just starting that day on the air in New York. So we were working with them in our control room in New York. So we continued. This went on for, of course, days and weeks. It was a hard time. We weren't, as we say, boots on the ground there, but we were there. We were controlling what was going out on the air, and it was very traumatic. They brought counselors in for us. Some people weren't able to take the pressure. And honestly, I couldn't really talk about it until the 10-year anniversary, when I was teaching at Clark Atlanta, and we kind of just focused on the anniversary. So it was definitely a day I'll never forget, but it taught many lessons about getting the news out, but yet remembering there's a human element behind all that. These are people's lives that were being affected. So yeah, definitely a day never forget.
With nearly 4 decades in the advertising industry, Sir John Hegarty is arguably one of the global industry's most respected leaders and also one of its fiercest critics. Hegarty was in the south of France attending the 2018 Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity to reveal his latest project. It's a powerful cinema campaign for the United Nations World Food Programme, which was released in 25 countries in September 2018. It's called Feed Our Future. It's a multi-pronged campaign highlighting the potential that is lost every time a child dies of hunger. I asked him firstly whether he thinks the world of advertising is doing enough to affect real social change across the planet.
I think it does a lot, but I don't think it does it in a very focused brand way. My slight criticism is you get an awful lot of charity effort and a lot of ideas, but they're not brand-led. They're not, I am trying to really do something that's going to be effective and help build a long-term brand in a very competitive marketplace where people are appealing for money all over the place. How am I doing it? So, yes, they do a lot, but I have to say, I think it's done to win awards rather than to be effective for that particular charity.
When you're doing something with an altruistic purpose or motive, is the creative approach any different to a commercial campaign?
No, I don't think it is, actually. I think the advantage is actually to treat it like a brand campaign. What's your point of view? How am I going to be different? How am I going to stand out? What's our USP? Or what are we saying that's going to change people's mindset? All of those things you use in a brand campaign. And I think the great advantage that we have is understanding how to make campaigns for soap powder, for jeans, for cars, whatever they might be, effective in the marketplace. Please, let's use that thinking for the United Nations World Food Programme.
That could be the strategic approach, but in your head, you must feel differently about it, surely. It's more important, isn't it?
Well, it is, but everything I do is important because it's my time. And it's wonderful to be doing something like this. It's wonderful to be applying my time to... I wish I didn't have to do it. I'm having to do it because 3 million children each year die of hunger. So that's an appalling thing I'm having to do here. In many ways, I'd much rather be selling Audis.
And that concludes our look back at 2018. And you can let us know what you thought of the stories featured on today's programme and all our social media platforms. As always, goodbye to you and thank you for watching.